Looking at a photograph, one can imagine a narrative behind it and even certain circumstances. Time, place, the weather, a particular event happening on that day. If one can recognize a city in the time period when the photograph was taken, they might predict some of the surroundings as well. A lot of train smoke and coal fires during 19th century industrial revolution in Britain. Wine shops and bakeries on Montmartre in modern Paris. Or the strong breeze from Baltic Sea that defies the time. Not being aware of such circumstances, though, can lead to the creation of new narratives that have not yet existed. They can be imagined and portrayed, relying on punctum. Personal feelings of the viewer towards the photograph. Knowing certain circumstances might mean that the viewer is familiar with another aspect that was present when the photograph was taken. Smell. If it was not present, however, seeing a particular photograph can create a hallucination of a smell. This phenomenon works both ways. When detecting a certain smell, the human brain automatically tries to resonate it with objects, memories or other aspects associating with it, which proves the tight relationship between smell and visual perception. The nose smells what the eyes see. When the eyes see a strawberry of vibrant red color, they deceive the nose, and the nose thinks that the strawberry smells stronger and sweeter than the one that's faded in color. The eyes can make the nose think that it's smelling a cheap perfume rather than fresh flowers, or old solvent instead of pine needles, depending on what they see. This element of deception is proof of their tight relationship and a phenomenon that is not known yet, however, might exist. The visual language of smell. If this phenomenon existed as a study, it would explore how a smell or a symphony of smells can bring back a memory, or create a new one, make up a narrative or a whole story, paint an image with particular colors and motifs, make a statement that is truthful or deceive and give a wrong impression. These are some of the aims of something that could be a product of the aforementioned study, a perfume. People have been wearing perfume since the 14th century to leave a particular impression. However, back then, it was the privilege of royalty to own a bottle with a magic scent. Today, many people wear them every day. But not a lot of people realize that a perfume can do so much. Interacting with different surfaces at a particular moment, it can capture a memory of a place and time, or a person wearing it, their eyes and their smile, how they dress and the way they move. Even if the person is not present, smelling a perfume they own can easily bring back the memories of them, or create a hallucination of their presence. The notes of the perfume can resonate with its owner's traits and reflect them perfectly well. However, it can be very deceptive. Strangers' perfume trace can become a false statement and commence certain speculation. Does the sweet scent of saffron mean that the person is soft and sentimental? Is it patchouli that makes them look arrogant? Are they mysterious and hard to read as well as the notes in their perfume? This phantasm can work in reverse. When creating a perfume, Frederic Malle, who is one of the most successful perfumers of our time, generally sees recurring images while creating a new perfume. Those images help him create the scent that resonates with a particular concept and visuals that he aims to convey within the fragrance. His uncle Louis Malle's film The Lovers has inspired Frederic to create his famous perfume, Music for a While. That film was very scandalous in the late 50s. It was the first film that showed people making love, and there, Jeanne Moreau, wearing a pearl necklace, was making love to a man. This elegance and freedom, temptation and boldness, were Frederic's approach for the perception of his perfume. Seeing the imagery that manifests those things very well, helped him smell that manifestation and turn it into music for a while. There is a connection between the senses. In 19th century Europe, novelists such as Zola, Balzac, and Dostoevsky all used olfactory imagery to convey place in their writings. And still to this day, people have a habit of buying a perfume from each city that they visit, as well as capturing it on the camera, so they can always remember how it felt to be there. When it comes to still images, Photographs not only enter our consciousness via the eye, but also through the nose, or its memories. If one can smell the street by looking at the photograph, it's a street photograph. The depth of field and sharpness of a photograph tells how close the camera was to the photographed object or person, and whether the photographer got close enough to smell the scent and capture it. The debate of how close one needs to get in order to do so speaks about the proximity and the distance, the trace and perception of a smell. Standing 30 feet away from a construction site is close enough to smell the machine gas and capture the white clouds it releases. To feel the smell of that site's workers' bodies covered in dust, dirt and sweat, the photographer needs to get a lot closer. This proximity requires different camera adjustments as well, especially when working with a film camera, as those are usually fully manual. To capture the smell of a metro underground, it might be necessary to focus on several details that resemble the smell of that place, such as the number of people that makes the air dense and heavy, or litter on the floor and graffitis on the walls that serve as the evidence of the past presence. This means that the aperturing needs to shrink in size, allowing less light in. To capture the essence of a young girl at the seaside, it is enough to focus on her skin and hair, burnt under the sun, and left with traces of dried salt. In this case, the aperturing must be wide open, keeping only a particular surface in focus and blurring everything else. The aperture of a camera is like top notes of a perfume. Top notes are the first notes one feels. They shape a very first impression of the perfume and give clues about the perfume's essence. The aperture decides on how many objects are going to be sharp, and points to the viewer on what to focus on. The dominant notes of a fragrance are the heart notes. They can either make a perfume very light and non-obligating, or heavy and dense. Shutter speed of a camera works in a similar way, making photographs light and clear, or opaque and dark. Lastly, the notes that remain all the time and don't change are the bass notes, which resembles ISO. That always stays adjusted to a particular number, depending on the film one is using. If the visual language of smell ever exists as a study, these similarities between camera adjustments and perfume notes can become a very big topic of exploration and experimentation. If the camera is adjusted according to the present scent notes, does it help perceive it better and remember the smell exactly the way it was during that particular moment? What if the camera is adjusted in a completely opposite way? Does a picture of a sunny summer field make the nose think it smelled of hard rains that day and the air was heavy, just because the aperturing shrunk? These questions address one of the main aspects of photography and smell, which is the memory. Photography is an image of time, and sense as the invisible circumstance that turns into the visual language. When a photographer manages to capture that language very well, and when the viewer reads it from a photograph with their eyes and their nose, that is when the greatest manifestation of the visual language of smell occurs. An attempt to capture a memory in a form of smell has led to the creation of a ceramic machine with a human name, Madeline. It works much like a film camera, only instead of capturing light information and producing photographs, it captures the molecules of a smell and outputs scent memory capsules. A user of this machine would also have to bring exposed resin trapped to a specialized laboratory, much like a film camera user would process the exposed film in order to output photographs. Both phenomena have a common way of existence and performance purpose, as a library of memories. Capturing a moment, whether it is in a form of scent or a picture, works great as a reminder of what has been there. However, this is where a photograph surpasses Madeline. The visuals can showcase details important for smell recognition, texture, movement or its absence, the weather, time period, proximity to a photographed object or interaction between numerous objects. And by doing that, not only it can remind of a moment of one's life, but also help discover the history and events that happened even before one was born. And the smell is an integral element of such process, as it reveals some of the most important details. Anxiety sweat, horsehair, sulfuric compounds from gunpowder and a touch of leather. If the Civil War was a perfume, those would be the ingredients, as it can be seen from the photographs capturing such a historical moment. And that fragrance plays a major role in capturing and preserving the memory. Soldiers don't write about their injuries as much as they write about the terrible sounds and smells. And for them, the smell of gunpowder becomes a smell of victory or a reminder of a terrible loss, and exists as a necessary element of memory. Memory that is preserved, cherished, captured and passed on. Memory that becomes history. In the future, the scent capturing machine might be perfected and even turned into an app, so that everyone can preserve smells, share them with each other and tell stories about them. However, such invention will never surpass a camera. A photograph reveals the details that were considered most important to the person looking through the viewfinder. This means that a photograph helps recollect the smell the way it was perceived, making it personal and intimate. Such perception is very individual, depending on what one's brain detects to be dangerous, appealing or attractive, or whether it decides to ignore certain smells. It emphasizes and composes the importance of particular objects, people, places and other circumstances. The medium of a photograph is old. It exists as an image of time and reflects many different generations' culture and history. History that cannot be recreated or repeated exactly the way it was, but can be remembered or explained. When looking at a photograph, vision and olfaction are rich and complex, affecting deepest emotions and memories. And there is no doubt that there is a very close relationship between the nose and the eyes. This relationship, potentially existing as the visual language of smell, is manifested best within photography. Not every photograph can make one smell with the eyes, or look with the nose. But those that do, can tell broader narratives, make bigger statements and evoke deeper emotions. To tell the truth, or to deceive, to impress, to remain and to fade. There are so many common names of photographs and perfumes. But when the two interact, those common names become a part of bigger purposes. To remember, imagine or predict. To capture and to remind. To remain and tell a story. The story written in the visual language of smell. Photographs reveal visual details that can evoke olfactive memory or imagination. Just like perfume notes, those details can be small and hard to notice, or obvious and outstanding. They can intertwine, revealing the symphony of smells that bonds into a perfume. A perfume that exists within the photograph, making the smell visible. It becomes visible through many details, revealing different smells. Wrinkly hand holding a cup of tea, or tight skin with sweat drops after a sports competition. The night sky in mid-July or early morning in snowy December. Tidy hotel room or a crowded stadium minutes before a rock concert. Perfumes held within the photographs can be very different. They can be truthful or they can deceive, however. They always contribute to the perception of a photograph, providing the viewer with a unique experience of their sense interaction. Senses interacting during such process are primary and very animalic, meaning that they are essential to survive, interact with the surroundings and to be a part of a society. They have not been overcomplicated by humanity or technology, and they do not require any extra knowledge or skills. In English dictionary, there is not many words to describe smells, and people who are not related to fragrance industry usually struggle to describe a smell with words. However, it might be easier to describe them through images, because the senses are closely related. A photograph of a cold sea instantly gives an idea of a fresh breeze with salty notes, accompanied with iodine and seaweed. That makes the fragrance bitter. A strong, warm smell of incense, rose petals and sandalwood can be found in photographs of Indian palaces. Such visual language, shown through a medium of a photograph, can easily explain and describe the smell that no words in dictionary could. This sensation shows how the language can be visual and have no barrier. It does not need translation or transcription, and there is no grammar rules to be followed or broken. It can hardly be written, but it can be captured on a camera. It can be smelled or seen, rather than spoken. It can provoke and intrigue, ask questions and give answers. It can hold memories and create stories, tell history with no words. But it is still a language. A language created and perceived within photographs. The visual language of smell.